Yeah, let's give this a minute to load up. So the plan for today, I'm updating this because it's a little out of date. It's like a patch and a half out of date, almost a month. So yeah, like I haven't updated this since sets were launched. So yeah, and then I'll play some games. And then the next time I stream, I'm gonna do some other updates. But I'm not. I don't want to do like everything at once, all on stream, because then that leads to a pretty boring stream. So I want to have like a bit of like content, like guide, like that type, and then we'll just have some gameplay. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, that's what I was worried about. We'll have to make some. That's weird. This one works and this one doesn't. Okay, no, just the title is not updated. Well, we can fix that. Uh, all right. So, what has changed? Actually, I realized the only thing that I did change was I moved Rice to the top. Yeah, that's technically not ordered. I think Rice is the best champion in Mayhem, just because it's almost impossible to not high roll. It was kind of the case before, but now like high rolling on Rise is like insta win, whereas before it's like it was just easy game. But yeah, there will be a point where Rise will not be touchable and will one shot any champion. So yeah. Uh I guess I'll talk through my logic from the top going down, uh, and I'll make adjustments if something makes sense. But I'm not really sure if I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, like I said, Rise is OP. Brand is also OP. I think he benefited less from augment sets than Rise did, so I think Rise is better. But I think Brand is still one of the best users of like almost any AP augments because his passive kind of just works too well, so he can proc everything when other champions would kind of have to work a little harder for it. So he has too many OP interactions because of that. Vayne is OP on the basis that tanks are OP, and also she kind of like wins most of these 1v1s, and also because tanks are even stronger than like before the addition of sets, Vayne is kind of just like she's the best in role, and she's also much harder to kill than like a lot of the other AD carries. So she's a lot harder to punish. Mel post nerf or post rework. I mean, the thing is, the rework didn't change too much. It gave her a shield instead of damage mitigation, but in Mayhem, that's not gonna really change much because it's really hard to get onto her in the first place. Like, she's definitely a worse champion, but she doesn't feel worse. Like, I still see Mel, like, just hard, like, destroying the enemy team, like, pretty much every game. I think it's because she gets accelerated really easily because she can steal kills with her passive. I think that helps a lot. Like every Mill's always gonna have a ton of kills, so it might inflate her KDA, but that also gives her more money, so she kind of just snowballs. So I think it's still justified. Like I personally don't think she's as high here, but I don't think anyone else would agree with that. So I'm gonna leave her. Senna, this is like a personal pick, but it's like one, she's my main, but two, also I'm personally because I understand this champion, I know that she's like able to abuse like so many different interactions within the augments and the set system and everything. Like it's kind of in the class's rise where like if you actually know what you're doing on the champion, it's almost impossible to not like hit something that's Exodia. And yeah, this might be main bias, but like she has so many disgustingly broken interactions. And unlike Rise, where it's like he'll just one shot you at a certain point, Senna will be like Senna's win condition. Like I said in my recent video, like talking about Senna and like Dusk and Dawn, but like in general, her win con is like she can play the game without being retaliated against. Like if you, there'll be a point where her range is too much, it's too high that you can't actually play against her, and Mayhem kind of it speeds that up, and it gets to the point where like it doesn't matter how high roll anyone else is. If you can't hit her, she's just gonna eventually kill you, and you'll never be able to do anything about it. Varus, I think people don't like in Mayhem, but I mean he can go lethality, AP, and unhit. There's always gonna be a correct build, and like you'll have something. So it's kind of like Rise, Senna. Like you're definitely gonna hit some kind of Exodia somewhere, assuming you're picking the right Varus in the right game. Uh, I would say current meta, it's probably best to default AP Varus because that's just the one that's the strongest because of like Dusk and Dawn and stuff. But like if you get a good on hit game, you play on hits. If you get a good lethality game, you play lethality. You'll always have a decent option. So I feel like it's if you're able to play flexibly, there's no reason not to put him in S tier. Jinx is probably one of the best hyper carries. I don't know if it's said. Play around crits. If you really have to, you can play on hits. It's not like the best because like the scaling with crits is much better. But I mean, if you get a good on hits energy, like it's not unreasonable to build like a Blade of the Ruined King on her. I feel like people don't consider that she can abuse some other aspects. Yeah, GP is like if you're I mean, this is like you have to be good at GP. I think most people are not good at GP, so his impact will probably feel lower. But if you're like good at GP, uh, your scaling is just too good. You'll one shots most carries that are a problem. Like if you can barrel combo and hit them before they react, like that's the main strength of GP. Like there's just no counterplay. Like you just will do 3,000 damage on barrel. Uh, and your fight AD carry, if they get hit, it's just GG. But if you're not good at GP, I mean, I don't know. That's like one of those things with like skill floor versus skill ceiling, where like people are like, oh, GP's not that hard, but like it's not like we're not considering the floor, we're considering the ceiling. And if you're not at that ceiling, he's not gonna have the same impact because if you give enemy carries a time to flash react or to break his barrels, then he's not gonna be that useful. Tristana is kind of similar to Jinx, a bit better like in the 1v1 dueling, so she can deal with better with like stuff like assassins. She can reset with her jump, so she's kind of safe too. Uh, she's kind of like a more like personally like viable version of Jinx. Jinx is like you play for a team 1v5, whereas Jinx is kind of like it's the general logic behind why like Tristana can solo lane, Jinx cannot. Where Tristan has peel and she can take care of herself. She's better 1v1. So if you're dealing with a strong individual threat, Tristan would be better. But that's all it is. Cog, I've moved. I think I moved him down, but then I moved him back up because of the new AP build. Because this actually just one shots most things. The Dusk and Dawn build, I think that one's really really strong, and it kind of is the best of both worlds with like the AP ult build and on hits. You can build a bit of hybrid, and a lot of augments can kind of lend themselves to both. So you can go Dusk and Dawn and then consider Nashers. If you get a good, like you'll have enough AP where you don't have to build only raw AP. You can build a bit of both. So adding multipliers like Dusk and Dawn Nashers, that makes Cog pretty disgusting. He's vulnerable, just like Jinx. Uh, they mostly play the same, but Cog technically has more range with his E and his R, whereas Jinx is more like team fight reliable, but a Cog can basically do the same thing. Aurora, GP to a lesser extent. If you have to be good at her, play around her W resets, but she can quickly sneak up and one shot enemy carry, and there isn't really much counterplay. So, yeah. Seraphine, I don't know. This might be another bias one because this is a champion I actually play, probably at a higher level than other people. But Seraphine with her W can kind of just perma shield their team. Like if you have to build haste on her. I think that's the most important stats. You're building AP and haste, so you're gonna do some damage. I feel like this is the kind of build that you should go on every enchanter, where you're building every AP item that also has like a good amount of ability haste. Like you're building like all the Blackfire torches, Seraphs, uh, old. What was the item? The one that they rework back and forth. Not Cosmic Drive. It's the item that I don't build anymore. This one, Horizon Focus. Yeah. This was much better when it was just a stat stick. This rework is like technically better on like damage dealers, but there's now very few champions that actually want this. But back when it gave 125 AP, that was really good on enchanters. But you're basically playing like you have high range. Your W can have pretty decent like uptime. With Rylai's, you have really reliable CC. Uh, yeah, you're basically an enchanter, but you do a lot of damage, and unlike something like Sona, you have more range and you have more CC, which kind of matters a lot because you can E-root an enemy carry and just instantly win the game off of that, whereas Sona's ult is lower range. Yeah. In general, the more you can play towards AP, the better the enchanter is going to be. So yeah, I think Seraphine's the best at that. And Zahan is just still overtuned. He was nerfed, so he's less overtuned, but he still wins 1v1 against most melees, and he can still one-shot carries if he gets in range. If you get like a scoped weapons, that's kind of the best case scenario, because all he needs is access. If he gets access to your carry, he will be able to one-shot them pretty reliably. And he can stack pretty easily too. So yeah, I feel I don't know. It's kind of hard to like mathematically justify it, but like this is just eye test. I think literally everyone would agree that Zahan is just overtuned. Just I guess it's still just a numbers thing. I guess, despite the fact that he was nerfed, it feels no different. Even like augment wise, he doesn't have like super crazy synergies, but like apart from like scope weapons, I would say. But yeah, he's just I don't know. He's just too good. A tier, I think from here on, it's not like sorted. This is like semi-sorted, like not really. It's more like this kind of bit sorted, and then the rest is just whatever. The rest is just anything in A tier is like about equal, just kind of context dependent. Vagar, I think people. So if you tunnel on him being a damage dealer, he's not actually that good. But what makes him OP is his cage and his ability to get access to it. If you get something like Executioner or Eureka, that's when you become Exodia. As a damage dealer, he's like good, but he's not reliable, which is the problem. Like he has his R, so he can probably kill one guy, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's kind of not super like he's not gonna have the same damage output as other people, but you kind of treat him like a support if like mage, then he's really, really strong. So I think the best build for Vagar is to go a little tanky so to guarantee that you're actually able to use your cage reliably. You're still gonna do damage, and you should still play to do some damage, but I think going pure glass cannon isn't really gonna work unless you are confident in that game that you're actually gonna be able to like one shot people with like a basic combo. If you have other damage dealers that are better, some of these champions, I would prefer you not to play selfishly and try to have better cage up times to help your team get more kills. Jax is just kind of anti ADC. He kind of does a lot. He can with the right augments, he can be super mobile. He can heal a lot. Uh, I don't know. He's kind of like Zahan, but even though like on paper he probably like should be better because he scales with better with like augments. Uh, I think he just performs worse. I don't know. I guess I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but he's definitely a very strong champion. He can do a lot of damage. You can build him tanky if you need to. He has like decent engage if that's what your team needs. Yeah. Tarek, you have to have some experience with it. His ult is pretty hard to use. I think a lot of people are gonna struggle with getting a good timing off of that. But if you like, you don't need to be like super good at Tarek, but you need to know how he works, and you need to be able to play around the right teammates with your stun and with your passive. Because the more you can cycle through your abilities, you can get more heals. Your heals is never going to be that strong, no matter how you play Tarek. He's never going to have that big of a heal, but you can cycle through your stun. You'll will have a baseline okay amount of healing, so there's still that. But you can just play him as a tank, and you can negate a lot of really strong things. He also has really good augment synergies because he has mana synergy, and he can play like a tank, so you can go like tank engine for something like that, or you can play on mana augments or just any tank. So he actually has really good augment synergies. But you need to be able like Tarek is like the same kind of champion as like Braum. I don't know, there aren't that many like wardens, but like you need to be able to like properly play to like enable an ally carry. Unlike let's say like an engaged champion like Nautilus Leon, it's a different skill set. And you need to actually be like well equipped for him to like be at the highest potential, but He is really good at it, and he has like he can do his job better than something like Rom, which is lower. But I mean, that's what Tarek is. I think generally underplayed champion, like even on Summoner's Rift. But yeah, in the right spots, which is more often than not, Tarek is actually one of the better tank options. TF, uh, at worst, you can just be a stun bot, and that'll be guaranteed value for your team, because if you stun enemy carry, that's usually going to be something good. But he also has really good augment synergies, so you can get something like Mark's Mage, and then you can just do like an insane amount of damage. You can play AP, you can play on hit somewhat if you have a good augment. You can play crit, same thing. If you have like a good augment, it's possible. It's not like super good, but the whole point is to accelerate the game for yourself and for your team. Uh, like it really doesn't matter what you build, apart from like rapid fire. I feel like that's pretty important, just because you guaranteed point and click stun. That's all it is, pretty much. And then anything like that is a little bit of extra flavor. He has, like I said, like decent carry potential with the right augments. So you're not gonna feel too bad if you actually know how to right click important units with gold card. Kassadin, this is one I think people do not respect enough. He scales really well. With the addition of tier stacking, just like Rise, Kassadin really likes tier stacking. He can use it really well. He can get really tanky and do a lot of damage. And even like in general, like he has like his build options and augment selection almost equal to that of Rise. Just Rise is a range champion, and Kassadin actually has to like go in, so he's a bit more vulnerable. But his damage output is really high. He can easily one shot anyone with like just R, like maybe R W auto. But yeah, however, he's kind of weak early game. He needs some kind of distraction. He doesn't even need like support. He just needs like a distraction. Because if he's the only melee on your team, then he can't really play the game. But if you have any other champion that goes in or like CCs or does anything as like a distraction, create space for him. Kassadin is very capable of dealing with a lot of other champions. Master Yi, uh, pretty reliant on the enemy team not being able to CC him. That's the counter to like most things, but like Master Yi, like especially like if he gets CC'd, he can't play the game. But his damage potential is ridiculous. Like he's the hyper carry that most people are aware of, like Summoner's Rift, or even ARAM, Mayhem. Uh, so it's kind of like comp dependence, but I mean he can obviously 1v9 games if he just is able to exist. And yeah, Yasuo, similar, but he can play a little bit more patiently because he has his tornado, he has wind wall. He has really high damage output. There's a lot of scenarios where you're gonna get team support, so it becomes like if people see Yasuo, teammates will kind of just go for the combo in draft sometimes, so that usually helps out a lot. But even if not, like the same kind of thing as like I said, as long as there's some distraction, you can eventually find a good lineup, get a good tornado, you ult, hopefully on the carry, and then that's good enough. Winwell can counter most counterplay, and yeah, that's about it. His damage output's really high, and he doesn't really have to worry about much apart from getting locked down and bursted. Kale used to be high just because of her late game carry potential, but with the nerfs to her AP build, uh, it's a little harder to play because now it's like on hit is generally better, but AP is like more high roll. So mixing and matching both is like a little difficult. She can still be really strong late game, but it just depends. Uh, she's not like the auto win that she was before, where she'd win pretty much like 1v1 against almost any champion. Now like she's weak enough to the point where if you high roll more on a better carry, or not even on a better carry, but like if you just high roll more, you can deal with the kill pretty easily. You can space the ult, you can time it out, you can outrange her. So yeah, specifically, I'm talking about the nerf to her scaling of attack speed from AP. Like I feel like that's what hurt her a lot in Mayhem because pre nerf, the correct build was just to always go AP with shards and like augments. It's really easy to accelerate an AP build more than a non-hit build, and you could go on hit augments while still building raw AP. So back then, you would just always have like that like guaranteed like high ceiling. But the ceiling for AP is a lot lower now because you don't get attack speed, so it's a lot harder to justify building stuff that isn't attack speed. She can still do pretty decent burst with like her E, Q. Uh, like her E does a lot of damage, like just on its own, like just the one auto. And her ult is also really good support for another carry on your team if you have to play that way. Like if you just have a better carry, you should recognize that if you ult them inside of yourself, that might help your team win. And yeah, that makes Cal pretty good. Smolder, I think I don't know, people like every tier list and guide thinks he's bad, but I mean I feel like anytime Smolder gets to his stacks, he's usually pretty good. I think it's just people are building him wrong because they're playing him like Summoner's Rift Smolder when you just want to play damage. Like you want to get your Essence Reaver, you want to max crit, and you should be able to play from there. Like if you go like this like Triforce Manamune build, it's not really that useful on Mayhem because the I guess the difference between a lot of Summoner's Rift builds and Mayhem builds is you're playing around like tempo and early power in Summoner's Rift. So the tankiness and stuff actually helps Smolder a lot. Whereas in late game, like your 2 item spike on Mayhem isn't gonna matter as much as your 2 item spike on Summoner's Rift. And Mayhem has the potential to accelerate way faster than than normal. So you should kind of just play towards your max skilling almost all the time unless you are aware that you are going to lose because the enemy team is for sure going to outscale you. That's really rare, and also at that point you kind of just want to FF because you have Smolder anyway. Like it's not like you can react to draft, so I feel like you should always play to your win con. Smolder at max stacks, or not max, like once he has his executes at 225, you just play, you apply it. Your teammates can help you rockets, just like with Elder. Like they get them low enough and you can execute. And it's really, really hard to deal with once you can do that. Especially since you can end up pretty safe with the right augment support. Twitch is kind of like Horus Varus. He has AP and AD, both can be viable, just depending on his augments. I think people are going to get baited by some AP augments because his passive is not a spell, unlike some other dots like Brand, like Lilia. So they're gonna get baited like that. A lot of on ability effects aren't gonna really be that good on him, but like anything that gives him raw stats, usually pretty good. What's good about Twitch is that he has the advantage of opportunity, I guess is a good way to put it. He can he can always call when he goes in, so usually that can catch people off guard if he is patient enough to find a good angle to start hitting enemy carry before they can react. So yeah, you play around that, then Twitch can be pretty good. And in general, he's just a crit AD carry that scales well. So that's it. Yunara, really good scaling. She is kind of weak early, but I mean, you get her online fast enough, then she's really strong. Kind of similar to like Smolder and other champions. You don't like Kraken can be good if you recognize you're gonna be useless early for too long, but in general, it's better to play just pure scaling because you're gonna get to your late game builds a lot faster. Uh, so as whereas Kraken is really good on Summoner's Rift because you're playing around 1 item for a lot longer. Uh, Yunara can afford to just go pure crit and then while you're not building like AP Yunara, any like opportunity to get AP can be pretty good, and it feels better than on a lot of other champions. Like any champion with hybrid ratios, like if you have the option to go AP or AD, that's really good. Yunara doesn't have that option, but I mean she can benefit from AP, so it's like not even that bad. But on hit synergies are really well. Crit synergy really good. She's kind of safe. Uh, Later on in the game, she'll have pretty good uptime. But yeah, she just needs to get online. Aphelios is just Aphelios Caitlyn. It's the same kind of thing where like there'll be a point where they'll right click you once and they'll do like 2/3 of your health. So yeah, they're kind of limited in their build, but I mean, just a good crit synergy is all they need. And yeah, if you are unable to punish them, they're pretty reliably going to do a lot of damage. They can deal with tanks decently, not like amazingly, but like they're like not gonna. They're not champions that can't deal with tanks, unlike some of the other ones here. Nyla, you have to be good at Nyla. Most people are not. Nyla's like not mechanically difficult, but you need to have like the right experience on her to actually perform. Uh, but yeah, she like technically outskills like almost every Eddie carry. Like her ratios are disgusting, but I mean her the general design is around her short range, so you kind of have to play around that. Her augment synergies are really strong, like technically better than the other crits 80 carries because her crits synergy is better. She also benefits a lot from like sculpt like so like sculpt weapons. It's like balanced on range, but she's melee. That can also become range with her Q, but then she also like double dips, so that's like an extra bonus. Basically, you need to know how to play Nyla, and if you can play Nyla like at a proficient level, like normally, uh, she's probably actually higher. But I mean, I'm just gonna, I can't put her that high because the skill floor is actually pretty high. MF, she can play around her ult or she can play crits. Usually, some kind of crit lethality is usually the best because crit scales better than lethality. But then there's also just some OP lethality items like Axiomark. And yeah, there's much to say. Like you, MF is a solid team fighter with a good setup. She'll pretty reliably do pretty decently well. She does struggle a bit versus tanks, but with the right augments and stuff, you can kind of like if you have your ult to deal with tanks, that usually works out. Most tanks can't deal with her ult. Like they're gonna lose most of their health anyway if you in their spot. So even then, it's not gonna be that bad. And yeah, that's it. Zaya kind of like these, but worse. But she's also safer because she has her ult and she has her feathers, which can kind of count. Like she's not, she can pretty easily R anything that gets onto her and then pull feathers back and root them and then kill. So she's safer, even though her she's a little bit limited by lower range. She has like decent DPS, but I mean, it's fine. Like her general synergies are going to be around crit. Uh, like she's not super good on hit or like lethality or anything, but she's usually pretty safe. Like it's in a game mode that is really good for 80 carries just because of like the damage ceiling that this class of champions can do. So I'd consider Zaya an average champion, but I mean I think like an average 80 carry. But 80 carries in general are just kind of OP in Mayhem. So yeah. Lucian, similar to Zaya, limited by range, but he can play around his abilities. His R in particular can be disgusting. Uh, I usually like some kind of critality build, just enough to actually like one shot multiple things with his ult. That usually works out, but otherwise, as a damage like DPS, he's usually like fine. His E gives him a bit of safety. Yeah, if you can afford to play like a little bit closer range than some of the others, he's usually pretty good. Sivir is kind of the same thing. Uh, weak early, low range, but her bounces can do a lot. Her spell shields can do a lot. Her ult is nice utility. She usually doesn't have problem dealing a good amount of damage in fights, just regardless of like anything. And then obviously scales well. So if you have, like, she's gonna be limited by range, but that's usually fine if you have a good team for it. I think with Sivir in particular, people understand the idea of a Sivir comp where you stack a bunch of frontline in front of her. Uh, Technically optimal for all AD carries, but I mean Sivir especially. So, yeah. Zyra is kind of like in the Veigar class. I don't know how you would. Honestly, I'm gonna move him here. Just these are all like the same kind of champion where they're mages, but they are more utility focused. They're not gonna solo carry and damage a lot of time, uh, unless there's like some kind of tank that they can the Andrews abuse. But Zyra has good utility. She has good range. Her poke is like okay with augments. Her poke can actually be threatening, but that's like situated. That depends on the game. Baseline, it's like not that crazy. She's really good against engage because her ults and her E like is pretty reliable. And yeah, she doesn't have like super high like solo carry potential. She's more utility focused, but her baseline utility is really strong. Her damage is still pretty good. So like she can definitely contribute a lot in fights. And yeah, Malzahar, same thing but more specific. Like his ult specifically will counter like their one engage or their one thing. Like if there's a game where like you can like super like reliably punish one guy going in, then Malzahar's OP. If there's multiple divers they have to deal at the same time, then it's a little tricky. His dot is pretty good. It's kind of like Brand almost. It can abuse a lot of interactions, except this is one basic ability, whereas someone like Brand has that on every ability. But yeah, you abuse the same interactions. So I mean, you have a cooldown, and your damage is like not really the same, but it's pretty good. He has pretty good augment synergies. Yeah, that's. I think people are gonna look at the damage charts and think he's bad, but I mean, if you understand how Malzahar work, like just these types of champions work, then he's really good. Morgana, same thing as said before. Her utilities and her E, her Q root, her ult stun, depending on like build. Like you probably want to take snowball on her and make sure you can get a good stun. But I mean, yeah, she's not gonna like solo carry games for DPS, but she has really good. She's a really good backup to another carry, and yeah, she can if she hits a bind, that's really good for your team. That's basically a guaranteed kill. And if you have a hyper carry, you can protect them. And yeah, she's good augment synergies. Okay, now we have some hyper carry type champions. Uh, Silas, Azir, Syndra, kind of the same thing. Silas melee version, he can get accelerated. Like I'm gonna put these kind of together because it's like they'll scale to a point where they can solo carry the games if they're good enough. Uh, I guess I'll talk about Syndra first because she's kind of the most like simple. Whereas she'll have enough damage to just one shot whatever. So, and this include this. I don't know how to explain it. She's just very reliable for one shotting. That's kind of her thing. Uh, Silas is here. You have to be good at them. Like they're relatively different. I mean, Silas isn't like super crazy, but like the skill ceiling is really high, and then Azir has high skill floor, high skill ceiling. If you're proficient at these champions, it's very easy to hit a good augment synergy, and you will usually be like Thanos. Like you'll just be like really, really strong. You'll have enough damage. A lot of champions can generally struggle to deal with it. Silas is like too mobile. He heals too much. His ults like usually like you can't pick against Silas. So like you can RNG a really OP ult, and then that's gonna be a problem. Uh, Azir's is really really high DPS. He can get accelerated enough to the point where he can outrange most things, and he can do more damage. That is if you're good at Azir. Yeah. Next we have these two enchanters. I'm gonna separate these from other enchanters because it's kind of. I mean, it's not that these two have something in common, but like I'm just putting them together because they have different things. Karma is really good because she scales well with AP. Yeah, that's about it. She scales really like better than other enchanters. You can also play her like in multiple roles. You can play her as a tank. It's not even that bad. It just depends on the game. In general, you're gonna be looking for an AP and haste build, as is with all enchanters in Mayhem. But Karma becomes ridiculous because she can shield her whole team for like thousands of health on basically no cooldown, and that's pretty OP. But yeah, the reason you're looking for AP centered build is because it's a lot easier to accelerate AP than it is to go around heal shield power. Technically, late game heal shield power will be more valuable because you can get AP later on more readily than AP, but in general, you get all the multipliers early. It ends up being easier to play. Like, not only that, you also have like access to a lot of haste items and stuff. And it gets to the point where like it's just you want your items to have the most impact on their own, and like enchanter items are generally built around or designed around being like efficient, not being like the highest potential. So yeah. And yeah, like I said, Karma can play like generally AP intent or tank. She's not gonna do like super high damage, but she can do some damage. And then it's mostly relying on her shield. And then as a tank, you are playing around your ult W, giving you 20% of your max health, like each time it does its thing. And that's like, it makes it really hard to deal with, especially you get like a good tank synergy or enchanter synergy. It's like something like protein shake is like super disgusting on Karma because she's like actually like probably the most unkillable champion with like the right combination of augments. Literally only vulnerable to range. Soraka is good because she kind of counters a lot of the things that exists in Mayhem early, and then also her E is really broken. I think if she didn't have her E, she'd probably be a lot lower. But by nature, like her nature as a healer makes her more valuable than other enchanters early on, and then her E is just super disgusting. Anything that can give her access to more of her E can just hard counter like so many different comps, so many different games. Uh yeah, like I'm specifically referencing something like Executioner, for instance. You reset your E, you silence the enemy team again, and it's like some games will like actually just be unplayable for the enemy team with that. And then as like an enchanter, like her healing is pretty okay, but like it's not really enough to counter a lot of like burst, a lot of like engage onto like your teammates. And that's the problem with enchanters in general. Like they don't heal shield enough a lot of the time to actually counter like a good engage slash like someone that actually does like enough damage and is actually like competent. Like they don't scale enough to heal properly because damage scales better in Mayhem than healing does. But yeah, Nico, kind of in this category. I'll put her here. She does good damage. She has good utility. Her W can do some stuff. Her passive can do some sneak engages. Her ult is really OP in team fights. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say. Jace, really good poke. I think underrated is you can play him kind of like with some crit. You do some crithality, and you make him not only a poke machine, but also a 1v1 machine because you turn on your W and you can one shot pretty much anything with crit. So something like Jill's Gauntlet gives you the best of both worlds. But yeah, Jace is just kind of reliable enough. He is safe because he has his ranged form, and then in melee form he has the ability to duel most champions. Yeah, it's hard to like find like a game where you can't really do anything. Usually you'll have some kind of input into how the game goes, and he does have the potential to carry a game if you're good enough at him. Nasus is OP because he scales well, but also his baseline utility is too high. He's not like the most tanky champion. In fact, like he doesn't have that many tank qualities at all, but his innate utility with his W Wither and his E, I don't know what's called, the Scythe, the Soul Circle, whatever, the Armor Shred, that's really strong. I've played games where like it's not even possible to stack because I'm playing into 5 range with 4 ranged allies, and like I'm just gonna get poked to death. But just being able to press W on someone is really strong. Being able to press E on the enemy team if your team has like a lot of AD damage, that's really valuable. And then of course in a game where you actually can play around stacks, Nessa scales pretty well. Not like super crazily, but I mean there's a lot of tank synergies that can make him just like immortal as with tanks. So you can play around that. As a carry, you can play him somewhat like okay. Like most games, you're gonna be playing like the default Nessus build with like Triforce, whatever. But it's not like you're gonna be useless because, like I said, your W and your E utility is just too high. That like you're always going to be a problem for someone. Lysandra, she just does a lot of damage, and she has pretty good relate like lockdown, engage. Her ult, not her ult, her passive in particular can be pretty annoying. There's a lot of games where you're gonna be perma fighting, so if Lysandra participates, she will have a lot of passive zombie. Yeah, there are some games that it can be hard to play. Like she does need other engage. She does need other like things. She has enough damage that she can deal with like carries, and she has enough utility to like be useful if she is gonna struggle. Cassio is very augment dependent, um, but she has some really insane synergies. As a DPS, she can be pretty good. Uh, yeah, but so like it's this mostly like the gap between low roll and high roll Cassio is like super high, and high roll Cassio can be almost impossible to deal with. It's also kind of I don't know. She's like super situational, but on average she can be really good. Her baseline utility is like okay, because she has her her miasma and she has her ult. Uh, but some games where you can't like do much damage and like whatever the context is, like some games you're gonna feel like you're doing nothing, but in general you'll be useful anyway because you have your W, you have your R. Katarina just depends on it's not even augment dependence because it's pretty easy to get something that's good on Katarina. It's mostly draft dependent. Uh, if she is not CC'd, she can do a lot. Her ult is disgusting. On hit synergy, AP synergy, you'll find something, but she just needs to actually be able to play the game. Fizz is like Katarina, except like more reliable, but like like less like team fight output. Uh, Fizz can very reliably get assassinations in. He's not gonna one shot the whole team, but he'll one shot each carry individually. He's pretty safe. There's a lot of augments that can give him safety, give him more access to his dash and his E. You can build him tanky as with Katarina, but Fizz is like generally more mobile, at least more reliably mobile. Cat, you can have to play around like your reset. Like I don't know. Cat's a champion like, I can't really play, but I mean, like if you're good at her, she's kind of disgusting. Fizz is like much easier to play at a baseline. So if you like understand what it is you have to do that game and how to build, you're really hard to punish. I think that's the difference. Like Fizz is just really hard to punish. Uh, and his augment synergies aren't even that crazy. He has like some good ones, but yeah, I think because it's the same class as like Echo, whereas like they're assassin type champions that are like really hard to punish. Echo gets going, uh, he can usually just ult away if anything happens, and he can output enough damage to like actually be a problem. I guess Fizz has better backline access, but Echo has more potential damage, and both can do some pretty disgusting things if left unchecked. The Fury is the AD version of that. I think probably generally worse than the other two, but I mean it's like the same type of thing where you pretty hard to punish. No, the Fury is for sure easier to punish, but it's harder to deal with a Nefiri. I don't know. Either way, Nefiri's really strong. She can deal with most carries on her own and then reset and then deal with another carry. If she has enough destruction, I guess more akin to like Kassadin, except with like worse augment synergies than Kassadin. I mean, they're both, I'd say, A tier. I don't have much else to say. I think the Fury is usually pretty reliable. Like usually you can one shot someone, and then yeah, the reset augments are in particular really like stuff like Executioner. Uh, quite good on the Fury because you have your W to react to stuff. E is like a mini dash. Yeah. Next we have these CC bots, which are a lot better now because with augments they can. I think they benefited the most from the sets because you have stuff like Sacosaurus, and then you also have augments like Soul Eater. I think that's a super underrated augment that's really OP on these champions. Uh, and then plus like obviously Steal Your Hearth, Tank Engine, stuff like that. But in general, the best tanks in Mayhem are ones that have CC because the counter to really high roll enemy carry is the lockdown to be able to kill them. Uh, Compared to something like a Scion, like you're gonna struggle a lot more because or Sion's gonna struggle a lot more because he doesn't have like he has better stats, but he doesn't have the tools to deal with really like hyperinflated enemy carries. Whereas you have Rel, Leona, Poppy, Nautilus, Makai, all of these champions can like theoretically lock down an enemy carry and usually like CC them for enough time for your team to kill. Uh, Not only that, some tank augments are actually OP, so sometimes you can just one shot them on your own. That's not gonna be every game, but like a really good cruelty game plus like a health scaling something like cruelty plus tank engine or something can work. Slow cooker can do a lot. Same thing. Uh, yeah, pretty much. But all these they kind of are the same thing, a different way. I think Poppy I'll talk about just because her W is more like is a reactive thing, but she counters a lot of comms, so it's like She'll usually be pretty useful. I'd say comparable to the rest of these tanks. But yeah, like the main point is that like the more you can deal with enemy carries, the better your tank is gonna be. More important than stats. Because like these like they don't scale as well as like a Scion or a Cho'Gath, but they just have a lot much better tools. And that's kind of the main point. Viego, uh I don't know, he's just good. He has enough damage usually to get a resets. I mean, like surely in Mayhem, your team has enough damage to get one reset, and that can accelerate him enough. Uh, it's kind of in the same vein as like these. All of them together. Like I'm just sorting champions by like what they are here, like not so much. It's kind of the same boat as these, where you have enough damage to 1v9. You just need to not get CC'd. You need a little bit of team support, a little bit of distraction, someone to create space for you. But yeah, it's really easy to get resets. He scales pretty well with any kind of crit, bruiser, uh, even like assassin augments aren't even that bad. Pantheon, not really quite like these, but on his own, he's just really strong. He is reliable, like engaged. He's pretty safe with his E. His damage output is like not as high. Like he's not like necessarily gonna 1v9, but he can pretty easily lock down like an enemy carry. He's pretty good 1v1. He does pretty good damage. He's really good with reset augments. And in general, it's just really strong. Like you're pretty likely to have like some kind of use. Lilia is brand, but melee, but also can be fast. Like if you're good at Lilia, she can be OP, but she's not like she's a bit more vulnerable and situational because like she can be like like I said, she's more vulnerable. Uh, her damage is less also, but like if you have a good game for her, she's really really strong. And as a baseline, she's pretty reliable as well. But yeah, she's here for her augment synergies because her passive works like brands where it's a spell, so it procs all those spell effects, and she gets really broken with stuff like infernal conduits, like phenomenal evil, anything that procs off abilities. Speed demon, I think that, or which is the one that gives move speed for hitting an ability. That's super broken because she has like permanent uptime on that. Yeah, so she has really high roll potential. Talia is I'll put her like here. She's like technically not here, but like it's like kind of the same type of champion where like she has good damage more than like the rest of these. But she also has pretty decent utility with her rocks. Her ult is gonna be pretty hard to use, but the best use case is probably to try to separate the team. Even if you just send it straight down the middle, if you separate the team, you can focus one side if you have like your team. And then the other thing is like to go diagonally. You go to like one side of the map, like the left or right side, and you try to go diagonally and you try to like block off people from escaping. That can also work. But yeah, she has good damage, good zone control. Her yeah, that's all there's to say. So it's usually pretty good. just because of her utility. Graves, I'll put here. He works a little differently because he's like semi-ranged, but he's just that like melee-ish AD hyper carry. Uh, he has enough damage to one-shot the whole team. He's a bit more. I don't know. He's like kind of the same thing as one of these. He's just, I mean, he's just a different champion. But he's really good crit synergies, really good AD synergies. Uh, he's pretty reliably gonna do high damage. But like these, he's vulnerable to CC. And yeah, Gwen. It's kind of like I don't really know where to put her, but she's like I don't know. She's hyper carry AP. She has good augment synergies. She's pretty reliable. Her W is really, really annoying to deal with, especially because this is so ranged focused. Her W alone makes her a lot stronger than she should be because she's way safer than other champions because she can counter all these like I don't know, range champions are much more prevalent and therefore the ability to negate their ability to hit her is way stronger. She also scales incredibly well. Augment synergies, she has some. I mean, she has decent high roll potential, but as she is a melee, she technically is vulnerable like these. But she's kind of like in her own category because she's like not really as vulnerable as any of these. She's like way safer, and her damage output is like pretty much the same. But what I'm thinking about right now is whether I put her in S tier because honestly, she feels way stronger than she did before. I think if you're good at Gwen, she's S tier. Because like she doesn't really have augment problems. She is pretty guaranteed to hit something good. Like most of my qualms are that like I don't really play Gwen myself, but like I'm pretty sure she's probably S tier. The more I think about it, why I don't know how to describe Wei. His range is like he has really high utility. He for sure does more damage than like a Talia though, but I don't know. He's like not augment dependent. It's more draft dependent. If his team has a lot of CC and the enemy team is like I don't know, he can deal with squishies pretty well. He can deal with if he has CC on his team and can have them grouped up. That's really good. Uh, his baseline value is really good because like he can play from long range uh, more effectively than something like Zerath. I think it's just he's more reliable. That's the main difference. I don't know. He just generally feels strong. Like he can definitely play the game regardless of like anything. Like I don't know. It's hard to put into words like what specifically he excels at, but he's just overall just a really really strong champion. like high range, high damage, good utility, good uptime. Same weaknesses as any like squishy champion, but I mean his outputs is usually going to be pretty good. Vex, really good into all these squishy champions. Um, her fear is also really annoying. She just does good damage. Like she usually doesn't have a problem. Uh, she's kind of like a hybrid between a mage and an assassin. I think something like from my personal experience is knowing when to play around like her assassin capability and when to play around her as a mage. Some games you just don't really want to go in because you can't. I think if your team has enough distractions, you can play her as an assassin. But otherwise, just playing her as a mage is good enough because she has a lot of just really high damage. And she can also counter enemy engage with her. Like she has a good self heal, passive for shield. Uh, yeah, but like I would just say she's just usually pretty good, like regardless of how the game's going. Ambessa, but are like next to Pantheon. I don't know what else is like similar, but yeah, pretty good stats, good engage. Um, pretty decent augment synergies. I don't know. It's hard to come up with something to say for like a lot of these. But Ambessa can usually do her thing in like most games. Um, I think some games it might be difficult if she's like the only one going in, she's prone to just being one shots. So you might never want to be able to R, but uh, sometimes you can kind of just like get away with that anyways. Where even if you die, you'll still kill like the one guy that you ulted, and that's usually good enough. That's kind of the justification for putting her here. She also can be really annoying if she gets like snowballing. Like if she's just good into the enemy draft, she can like if the enemy team doesn't have enough damage to deal with her early on, and she just continues, she can eventually be really hard to deal with. Because she's quite mobile. Ari is she's just safe damage. She's never really gonna struggle in a game. She has good augment synergies. She has good damage. I feel like you can always play the game as Ari. Like you'll still be able to do something. You hit a good charm. That usually gonna convert really well. Karthus, I think this is just a champion that people don't play correctly a lot of the time. They don't recognize when to play around eight like just raw AP and when to play around like Rylai's, Leandri's like utility. His ability to just go on the enemy team and debuff them to hell is really strong. Uh, a lot of the time you can kind of just snowball them, and then with your E and your Q, that's usually enough. Uh, a lot of people get baited to just going raw EP and then playing on his ult. You could do that some games, like for sure, but not every game. Sometimes the enemy team is too tanky for that to work. Sometimes your team will just benefit from having a free Rylai's on the enemy team. It really just depends. I think it's a lot of confusion is just because people don't play him correctly in most times. Like every game I play with a Karthus, they're for sure building the wrong Karthus. But yeah, he has okay augment synergies, but just in general makes the game harder to play for the enemy team, and that's his main value. It's not so much playing around himself, unless you like get a really good setup, but he just makes the game harder for the enemy team. Briar, just really good stats. She has good scaling. She can play around tank or damage, and in the right game, she will be impossible to deal with because she just has too much stats. She just heals too much. She has too much health. Zed, if you're good at him, really good synergies with augments because he can get enough haste to do anything, and he can also just build raw damage. Like the difference between a good Zed and a bad Zed is whether you only kill one target and whether you can actually kill the enemy team. But if you are proficient at Zed, he scales quite well and is kind of the nightmare to a lot of like these champions. So yeah, for the most part, you just want to play something that like play around augments that give you like some kind of haste. That's the most useful thing for you, and you can just build more raw damage. Some items will give you haste too, but the more you can just go in with your W, the more useful you're gonna be. And yeah, because he definitely has the output, the damage output. Diana, she's good because you can build her as a one-shot AP burst assassin, and you can also build her as a tank. I think Tank Diana's pretty underrated because she's mobile, but she also has decent damage output, and she can also stat check. Uh, like sometimes some games you just have enough defensive tools to not be killable. Um, and yeah, so either way, like if you have a good tank augment, you can play tank. If you have a good AP augment, you can play AP. It really depends on whether you like have to go into one shots or if you can afford not to. If your team has a lot of damage, you probably want to go tanky because you it's probably better to play like to create space for your team, especially since with the right setup you can have enough damage to one shot enemies as a tank. Diana's a little special. Yeah, sets you just build all the AP, all the AD, all the health items. Your W is going to do like 20,000 true damage, and that's it. Obviously, much better if the enemy team actually has a front line, but you can't really control that. So some games will be a bit harder. If the enemy team doesn't have like an actual front line, you can just play like more for like damage, like bruisery, and then yeah, I mean, just with Snowball, he can do enough. Uh, and yeah, just because of how much health scaling there can be in Mayhem, he's usually gonna be pretty good. Shyvana, she's gonna go AD or AP. Both of them can be good, just depending on the game. AD scales better, but is more situational because she's more vulnerable as a melee attacker. Whereas with range, you can just play with her fireballs. But the actual like output is not gonna be as high. I see people also play tank, but she's not really that tanky, so I don't really know why. Like you can abuse tank augments, and like it's that works. I wouldn't really call Shyvana a tank, but that is technically an option too, because there are just some setups that are just kind of really broken. You get Steely Heart Tank Engine. The game plays itself. Doesn't really matter what champion you're playing. Okay. Galio is like here, but not really, because he doesn't have as much CC, but he's also like, I don't know. Okay, so Ornn just is a stat stick, but his stats are really high, and then his W also makes him able to deal with other tanks because of just how much percentage damage it does. Uh, and with Mayhem just being a game of scaling, Ornn being probably the best scaling tank, it at least puts him above like these. And then Galio, he has good CC, but not like like super high amounts. His ult is hard to like reliably hit because you need to ult on a teammate. His W is good. His E is decent. Uh, he does decent damage. He can get pretty tanky with tank augments, and that's usually good enough. Like he has enough CC to be comparable to these, but he has other benefits. Like he's more tanky, and he does a bit more damage. Or it's not even like really true, but yeah. But his ult is also really good. I don't know. I would say Galli's kind of like these, but just weird. But he's also like comparable. And I'm just gonna put all these tanks together. Okay, I'm going to play some and then continue to rest my thread a bit. We're gonna get like 50 tanks, aren't we? Yep. Every game is like 10 tanks or 10 carries. And this is like a better champion. We have backline. Okay, now our damage is a little low. Oh, now we're...
This'll be a blast.
Oh, we're good at Silas. I'd play Silas. This is a game I can play Shrink Engine, because I have actual frontline. Why did someone was playing it back? Oh. Well, no health damage. Ah, it's unlucky. I mean, recast just blew up on its own. Oh, it's like a little too far. I think this guy might just play Luden's Landry's. Their damage is pretty much all AD, so I can actually go these boots. I'm gonna wait for other ones because I can. Tank Engine. Oh. Not this game. Ice Cold. Slap around. I mean, I'm not gonna die a lot. Oh, but Twin Fire? I already have this, and it's not the worst. I just have to do that more. Okay, but that's like a Twin Fire diff, 100%. What is happening here? Ooh. Be careful about GP one shot. What's the point of ulting that? Gotta play careful. I'm using my. I'm just using my W to get stacks. So I have to not die because of it. Oh. It's okay, it's augments. Not conduit. Oh, conduit. It's not an effect. I don't need Eureka because I have Shrink Engine. Oh, it's dueled. See, now it would have been okay to go Twin Fire, but whatever. Yeah, I'll go this. To this. I did. No. Where's everyone? I messed up. I was not paying attention. Oh. I'm so tiny. I'm so tiny. I need to not get portaled. You got that. He does not got that. Yeah. Huh? Is that a minion or something? Oh, I didn't knock her out of it. Yeah. What's this guy doing? What's my boy doing? Oh. I've not needed to press Ghost. I'm gonna... Uh, I can go adapt. Into that cap. Oh, I shouldn't have done. That didn't even do anything. So how much gold do I need? I need 1900 plus 3500. Oh. Holy! That's not fair. I got ignored by my team. I mean, 1900. Okay. Alright. I mean, I got enough gold. Honestly, that might be worth it against the Diana. She's like the only one that reliably gets onto me. If I'm getting hit by the others, it's like my fault. Diana has point and click dash. Oh. Oh. GG.
No one fights alone in the mist.
Let's see if I get to show off any Sand attack. Now, we could have some better champions. We have a Zoe here. I mean, I guess Blitzcrank is the best frontline we have. And Zahan would probably be better. At least we have AD, AP, frontline. Would rather something else apart from the Zoe. They have a Rise and a Shaco. Soul Eater, as tempting as that is, I have double tap. Did they have a tank? Not really. What am I gonna go? I'm just gonna stack all of them. Hmm. Just probably convert some more damage, right? I don't really care about it between these two. I'll just take the hobby. Bork, Hurricane, Titanic, and Terminus. The trigger, that's one Redditor. With enough crits, I get the Dusk and Dawn effect of being able to just double proc, or instantly proc my passive. Like, I'm just playing for souls. I messed up. Okay, whoops. They're all AD. No, they have a Rise, but Rise should never hit me. Yeah, I want armor boots. Wait, did I have enough for this? No, I didn't. Mine. Okay. What the? I forgot that guy. That's gonna be a problem later, but. I don't know what my W wants. What the fuck? Huh? Also, he hit 6 first. What, like... I spent too much time in base, I guess. He took 0 damage on his way to Penta. What the? He has it already. What does he have? He's double tap. Huh? I mean, I guess it works, right? With his passive. Definitely Hurricane. It's prismatic. And just stack back there. Okay, got the stack. You can't see. Okay, that's just to piss him off. I'm actually okay with dying here. Because it's augmented and it's prismatic. But I'm never gonna give the Shaco the satisfaction. I don't know why I'm ulting. Who has the cupcakes? Our team. Okay. So, cupcake, not bad. Bro, how does he, like... Oh. See. I'm not even gonna use this pot. Honestly, I should die. How much gold do I have? Oh, I need Bork. Oh, that's gonna be. I mean, I could deal with it. I could deal with it though. I just need to let him get up into my range. Oh. I'm trying to take these so much, but yeah, I can do that. Okay. I want to try dropkick, see if it's worthwhile. Fan the hammer. I want to see how good this is. On just like, just raw, no anything. Okay, so I do this. And I start going this. And I'll pop this. And no, next augments. These are not good. This is still not good. I think Joppy Bara. Bruh. I'll just take this for the self-heal, I guess. Every auto is a soul proc. Well, 80% chance for it. That's not the direct enemy. Watch. What's the threshold? Yeah, I mean, my augments are not very good. So I could have snowballed. I just forgot that I had it. I need to. Actively use it more. scale eventually. They're all bursty, so I'm not even getting the kills. Even if I'm doing all the work. Oh, does he have so much haste? Okay, auto resets. Stacking this. I couldn't get one auto on him. Oh. Not that. We don't care about this. Is it even worthwhile? Yeah, okay, this is just way better. I think he wins that. He does win that. Because he's in front of conduits, that's why he wins that. One day this will proc. And it'll be really cool when it does. I can sit in base for this. I want an 80. I just want crits, right? Yeah, random into it. Oh. Yeah, but yeah, it's for sure randoms. That's kind of a greedy wait. Ah, I get outtrained by the Jace. Unlucky. But like my build would have been really cool if I had like I don't know better prismatic here and also more time. And this game is pretty anti-Senna. But my build would have been really good because I'd have the Randuins against triple crit. And then yeah, Holy Augment synergies. Double tap. Absolutely disgusting on Senna. No, Aurora. Everyone's fine with their picks. Out. I mean, we have no true tank. We have triple. Okay, this is now we're low damage. Oh, now we're okay. This is okay, but I liked having the Viego or the Oh, I don't know about this. The problem is I don't play these AD champions. I probably should have played like Viego. Who can potentially build? I mean, not really any of them. We're kind of chilling. I don't think any of them would want to build magic resist. But yeah, okay. So Cog is probably a problem unless the Aurora can one-shot them. Um, yeah, the rest aren't that big of a deal. We're gonna struggle to deal with the Cog. I might have to like flash ult. None of these. Uh, Early red envelopes is better. I think the haste is just not valuable. What am I gonna go here? I think I just go burn. Double burn hurts. Is Cog going? No, he's just going. Oh, you critical rhythm. It's not that bad if you go Hurricane. But what about the other crit items? If they're gonna play into crits? Like, the problem is that, like, on Cog, this is just like a much worse Zealot. Oh, that was actually a really good bubble. I didn't hit him. Okay. Haste. Spread? It did spread. Too far away. Move speed. That's really good. This is why we say red envelopes. I can reach the cog. It's fine. Early on, it doesn't really matter if I kill the cog or not. Oh, why is it over there? I'm never getting that. Getting really good Q value. I am... Okay, well I guess he's allowed to do that. I got the E reset. Since I get KP for this. Do I wait for... I can wait for this. I'm not really in desperate need of boots. Move speed? That's huge. I have 10 lethality. Lethality. M-pen. That's better. Okay. So like the move's like... The best stat to get by far is the move speed. And then outside of that, AP haste are acceptable, M-pen acceptable. I don't really care if like I get them or not. But the more move speed I get, that's the good stuff. AD, fine. These skill with ADs, that's not even bad, right? Oh, that's... Yeah, the problem is it's really hard for me to ult this game because they have a Nami, a Rumble, and a Vi. So I'm never gonna do damage if I... No, I'm not gonna really do damage. That's okay. I'm not paying. Oh, he didn't have time to just hard steal it. I didn't E. Give them more time. What the fuck is that, man? Why is it under their tower? Right? Some poke. What's the 80 scaling of these guys? 40% bonus. The worst. I get my E off. And okay spots. What the fuck? Why do you heal so much? Well, it's not these. Vampirism? I'll take donation, I guess. Hey, what if I just never go boots and I instead go like... Do I need... Okay, I do need... this on the tent. Love letters. What the? What just happened? Move speed. M pen. Oh, that's embarrassing. Yeah, the problem is like that's always gonna happen. So I have to I just went for it because that's like the only opportunity. Another move speed one. I'm at 4 move speed, right? 20 move speed. That's like basically just. You know, acceptable. Mar. That's pretty good. That's... I just could have just kept walking forward towards the thing. Cupcake. What's up these other ones? Oh, it might be Giant Slayer. I mean, if I just shard stack, because they're not even going to be that large. Only you're going to be large. What I want. I'll take the Oblivion Orb now, I guess. I just... Oh. Can you sweep ahead? What is going on there? I'm just stacking. Oh. Alright, guys. Honestly, move speed diff if I got the boots. I'm gonna be making a lot of money, so it's fine. Yeah. Just to send the message. Resets? Unfortunately, we're winning too hard. Another move speed. Like, that's basically upgraded boots. I'm chilled, stalling as much as possible. Okay, here. My last item that probably wants to like Rhylize, and then I just upgrade the Morello. Just a little bit away from 15. Rumble's 15 somehow. Money. Legality. Okay, I'm stuck. She just did that during my ult. Uh... Oh. That's funny. Can I magically get enough gold in base from my team? Yes. More move speed? Right there. AD? Yeah, they're having a lot of fun now. I just let the tanks get it. Because the more that they heal... Oh, he was fast. But... Wait, it cancels my ult? Oh. Well, I'm scaling. My stats looking like... A lot of AD. No. What's the Vi doing? Alright. Oh. Must be. M10. MMR. Some cards here I can collect. I'll just wait. Or I'll just let it. We're running too hard though. got that. Yeah, I'm not trying to like throw. I'm not trying to end the game that fast. Bro. This was my last one. Kinda boring game, but I mean, I'm playing with champions that do more damage than me. If the game went longer, I would have eventually outscaled, but whatever. And I'm gonna quickly talk about the rest of these champions in B, C, D tier. Uh, in general, B tier champions, uh, just either augment dependent or just like, just it's just on average they're gonna perform okay. And then C tier, it's you need a good amount of high roll or you need to be very good at the champion to find success. And then D tier, it's like the game is usually going to be very hard unless you're either very good at the champion or you get like a very specific set of circumstances. So yeah, all these tanks that like scale, and Alistar's like kind of a worse version of these because he doesn't have like as much CC. Or in terms of like what he's gonna apply, like layered CC. He has a combo. He's not gonna use W and Q like separately a lot of the time. And like his is E stun, but that takes a while and it's single target. Like he's gonna use tanky, but he has less like chain CC potential. But I'll put him like here. Also, probably better than these. These other ones they scale really well. They can get a lot of health, but uh, they have a hard time reaching and killing backline. Window can do damage if you can get onto backline, but if they have a good health shredder, uh, it's hard to play the game. And then Scion Shogath, they have decent CC. They can get pretty tanky, but their CC is not as good as these champions. And even though they'll probably be tankier, uh, being tanky doesn't really matter if you're getting outranged, outsped, whatever. Singed is like he just has augment synergies. Like there's just so many good augment synergies. Like you can play around a lot of because his poison is a spell that procs like all these spell effects. So like all these infernal conduits and phenomenal evils and all that. They're up in. He has a ton of synergies. He's rather difficult to play in fights or like to like optimize in fights. For the most part, you're kind of just looking to run around and try to disrupt the enemy team. Try to flip a carry. If you have Rylai's, try to slow them down. Try to just get your poison constantly applied. Uh, that sort of thing. It's hard to like optimize his fights because it's kind of chaotic in nature, but he has really, really good augment potential. And then overall, as a tank, like his damage is okay, but no, it's not like super crazy without good augments. He's not like super tanky or anything. He has like okay CC, but he had like he's very volatile in what he could do. Oriana, she's just a strong champion. She has good combo, uh, decent wave clear, decent damage, decent range, so she can punish a carry if they're mispositioned. With like you want to make sure you have enough damage to like actually one shot on your full combo. Uh, not get bait into getting too much haste because if you leave some champions with a sliver of HP, they can just heal up and then kill you, and that's something that's a lot of Ori players are guilty of. They don't like that. You need to like pure greed damage to make sure that they're actually dead. Because if you don't one shot the Jinx or the Sun that jumped on you, then that just is gonna wipe your whole team. Anivia, it's comp dependent. If you have a bunch of champions that can't deal with the wall and the ult, then she's really good. She has decent augment potential. She doesn't. I don't know. It's just comp dependent, like the enemy comp. Jin, Zeri, Ashe, Ezreal, Corki. These are like obviously you can have really good games with them. It's more comp dependent. Sometimes it's hard to play these champions. I mean it's sometimes hard to play these champions, but like at least they're like guaranteed super good late game. Like Jin, sometimes like if there's a like a health scaler and he can't deal with that, really tanky stuff he can't really deal with. The best bet is just to play for move speed and try to yeah. Same thing with like Zeri. Sometimes like I mean Zeri's like speedy, but like she doesn't do enough to like punish stuff, and a lot of things can get a lot faster. Like she, I don't know. I found Zeri to struggle a lot. It's kind of game dependent. And then Ashe, she's got good utility, but she very easily punished. So yeah, she's more vulnerable than like a lot of other champions that have access to all these extra dashes and extra damage. Ezreal, he's like fine. It's just hard to be able to output a lot of damage on him a lot of games. Like if you have a good augment setup, then he can be really good. But otherwise, he's just on average gonna be less damaging than other champions, and he gets a lot less benefit from augments than some of the other ones that have like crit synergies or on hit synergies. Ezreal's augments aren't the best compared to the others. Corki, it's mostly a range issue. He can one shot, and he's usually pretty good, but he's prone to being not ranged by things. And outside of his damage output, he doesn't have much utility. And he can get stuck on a frontliner. Like there's a really tanky thing he can't really deal with that very quickly. Nunu, this is I don't even know if this is too high. Nunu is pretty like I want to say AP Nunu is better than Tank Nunu in Mayhem, just because Nunu doesn't have like much actual tank stuff. He has like the ARAM buff, which actually helps quite a bit, and he has his heal, but his heal skill is better with AP. It's usually gonna be some kind of hybrid. You stacking health, you're stacking AP. Uh, but yeah, he or they, I guess, Nunu and Willem. I don't know. Their spells are like really weird to play around as a tank. AP, you're just snowballing in, and you're hoping that they don't have anything that can block your CC. If you, it's because there's no runes. Like you can just see based on the enemy comp. If they have nothing that can disrupt your snowball, AP is probably better, just because like it's easier to scale. Tank Nunu like themselves, they don't have like much tank from their ability. They have like the Q is okay. That's their only tank ability. And then their snowball is not reliable mid combat. Use it for engage, and then if you if it comes back up, you just tap it, and it's like a mini knock up. And then the E is a delayed route. And it's slow, which is okay, but it's not as good as other CC tools. Shaco, I think AD Shaco is probably on average A tier. AP Shaco is probably like C tier. Uh, it really just depends because if you have a good enemy comp where they're all squishy, you can very easily run the game. If the enemy team is tanky, Shaco struggles because AP Shaco is just not as good, and AD Shaco, you need augments to be able to deal with tanks. Like they just like resets and like be able to go in and out. Uh, so on average, he's like B tier. If you really get Shaco, especially Ace AD Shaco, he could probably be higher, but it's really dependent on draft, I would say. Braum is he's like really good for peeling, but he's not very good offensively, and that's kind of hurts when his main tool, like the main, like you're not really worried about like assassins as much as like range threats, and his ability to actually punish range threats is worse than other tanks, like support tanks. Um, in melee heavy games, he becomes more valuable, but the meta is not very warped around the melee champions, so Rom is just a solid tank, but nothing too special. Like he'll always be able to be tanky, but whether his utility actually has like significant like carry potential in a game is just dependent on the game. Lux, good damage dealer, the good range. Uh, it can be like her E is gonna be like reliable, but it's hard to like hit your kill combo without team setup. Um, Sometimes fights play out faster than Lux would want. If you can just harass them with her E, especially like early on in the game, that's usually pretty good. But otherwise, you're kind of just like praying the enemy's distracted enough that you can hit your Q, and then that's all you need. Otherwise, she doesn't have enough to like actually kill. If you get really fed or really good augment setup, maybe you can just ER, but that's usually not enough. Hitting Q is not that easy in Mayhem. So Sona is kind of just limited by range mostly. Pure enchanter qualities aren't as rewarded in Mayhem. I think enchanter items just are not very good. So going from an AP perspective, AP Sona is like decent damage, but not anything crazy. She's decent utility. Like she can heal and shield an okay amount. Her ult is nice, but like kind of lowish range. Her move speed is nice, but I would say she's kind of like a worse version of like Seraphine or even like Karma in Mayhem. She just, even though she scales really well at Summoner's Rift, she's not really as rewarded in Mayhem. The one thing though is that you can get some pretty good augments on her. Uh, Something like especially like a mana synergy that usually can turn out pretty okay. Zerath is way but worse, pretty much. Uh, he's nerfed a bit, and then also if he if something gets onto him, he gets punished really easily. Uh, his scaling in Mayhem isn't like super crazy. Like I would say, like the main difference between Zerath and Hui is that Hui has more utility. He has more tools to play with. He has three different CC spells that you can choose from. Zerath only has his one stun. That's if you can hit it, it's pretty good, but it's not always going to be super easy to hit an important carry. You're mostly just using it as a self peel tool. And yeah, his damage is good if he is actually outranging everything and actually able to constantly fire spells, but if anything is able to threaten the Zerath, the game actually becomes pretty hard to play. Fiddlesticks, it's just comp dependence and how like your team plays. If you're able to actually like control bushes and like help Fiddlesticks get his passive fear off, then he can do a lot of team fight damage. He can punish carries pretty well, but it's like not even so much comp dependent or augment dependent. It's literally just how well your team plays. But yeah, like the game isn't gonna be too bad. It's not like too hard, but it's also not like guaranteed. Like you have to just kind of have nice circumstances. Malphite, as a tank, he's not as good as the other tanks. There's just too many tools to circumvent his bonus armor, so he's not actually really that tanky. To the point where I think in Mayhem, AP Malphite is probably better than tank Malphite, unlike in regular ARAM, where tank Malphite is much better, and yet people still go AP. Uh, but yeah, as a mage, he's pretty good. There's enough tools to have like pretty decent uptime. Uh, with like Snowball and all this stuff around that, you can pretty reliably play without your ult. Obviously, like your ult is pretty good for damage, but you can build enough damage and like snowball in and still one shot. So that makes Malphites pretty playable, but it kind of just depends on your augments. Uh, I'll talk about Hecarim first because his story is just related to specific nerfs. Hecarim was higher when he had really OP augment synergies with his AoE, his Q, and his W, like just applying stuff, and he would be able to use abilities more often than normal. But since those fixes, they just hot fix and they remove some stuff from him. He's pretty average. He still has pretty okay synergies. He can be pretty tanky, but he's kind of dependent on the enemy team not having any good lockdown and having other teammates that can go in with him. Uh, a lot of these champions, like Aatrox, Kled, Olaf, they are kind of in the same category, whereas they suffer if they are the only frontliners that can go in. Because if they're getting focused, they'll very easily die. But if you pair a lot of these together, then they become a lot better. I'll put like all of these together. It's like all the same thing. All these like bruisers slash duelists slash whatever. Literally all of these. Like melee carries that aren't tanks and aren't like pure glass cannon 1v9 damage dealers. Like you can obviously get a good damage setup with augments. You can, but in general, how good these champions are generally depends on how many other melees you have on your team and what kind of tools the enemy team has. Some games are just not possible to play on these champions. You just don't scale as well as all of range carries, but you can obviously find some games where you have a uh, really good chance, really good setup. I think the main problem is that a lot of the bruiser lungs are just not as good, but in the future that might change. I do think one thing that's a bit underrated on these types of champions, is to take the fully automated sets. I think that one helps a lot with them being able to get in and do damage. Specifically with stuff like Foxfire, I think that's a really OP augment. Uh, Quantum computing, if you already have like the set, is really good. Uh, yeah, Boomerang procs some stuff, so that's also pretty good. Way to do damage while not actually committing to engage. I mean, some of these is kind of different than others because, like, for instance, Wukong, J4, they actually have like pretty good engage. ARAM is like okay as well with his ult. The rest of these, like, they have like okay tools, but it really just depends on the game. Um, Ivern, he's like pretty annoying to deal with, but a lot of his spells aren't really that much more useful in Mayhem than they are in normal ARAM. So yeah, like he doesn't scale really well in Mayhem. So like the best bet is probably to play like some kind of AP Ivern, but that's like really augment dependent. And then otherwise you're kind of just praying that your shield is enough to prevent them from killing your whatever carry. I would not play Ivern if you don't have like a hyper carry. Because otherwise his other spell, his W and his Q in Mayhem aren't very good. Nidalee is a decent support. Uh, Obviously you can punish bad players and hit your spears, but in games where you're actually playing against competent people, hitting spears is not very easy. So committing to damage Nidalee is not very effective. She doesn't scale super well with augments either. So you kind of need to have a lot of CC on your team and need to have like a hyper carry that you can buff. In that case, then she's like okay. Otherwise, she's just kind of dependent on you being good enough to hit your spears, and the enemy team being bad enough to get hit by the spears. At worst, you can also just go in and probably kill someone and then die, and you just trade. That can be the game plan. If it's a difficult game for Italy, you just try to trade versus the most important target you can reliably kill. And I'm just doing a little bit of sorting. Uh, these AD carries, they're just gonna struggle a lot more than others. Uh, also suffers from short range. She has really good augment energies. She can get, there's a lot of really OP augments that she can hit, but she is very prone to CC and just being jumped on, killed. Uh, she punishes like melee that she can kite, but there are not always going to be many melee that she can kite, so it's really draft dependent. But in a meta that is more favored towards melees, Calista would become better. But into like games where you're gonna have like at least three ranged champions on each team, probably, because players don't like picking melee champions. Kalista struggles more. Kaisa struggles too much early. Late game she can be strong, but it depends on team. I would say that the like if you because AP is really good, but uh sometimes it's just like she gets jumped. I mean, I don't know. I just find that Kaisa struggles, even though I don't really understand why. And like when I play her, she's like fine, and when other people play her, she's fine. But like every time I see a Kaisa, they like struggle a lot because her like she scales really well, and I feel like I might want to move her up, even though like I've heard a lot of arguments that a lot of people complain that she sucks, and I just do not understand that. But I also don't like play enough to be confident in like, oh, you know, they're like this is how you play there. If you play her in this manner, she'll always perform. Some games it's just hard. I think maybe AP Kai'Sa is reliable enough to move her up. On hit is definitely good, but you need to actually be able to hit. Uh, so you need to not be outranged. AP, AP might be enough to put her higher. Because I mean, people play it from the wrong spots, but it's pretty hard to punish, and it scales decent. Not as well as on hits, but it's a good backup. But usually you have some kind of mix of both. I'll probably move Kai'Sa up. Samir Draven, Akshan. This is all just individual skill, like your skill as a player, enemy team comp, how well you can actually get kills. Uh, if they have like CC and your whole team is dying before you can do anything, that's kind of a problem. If your team has CC and you can kill your one guy, in Draven's case or Samira, you can actually like stack your ult. The problem is a lot of games, some like you're playing Samira and then your team, like you're trying to go in and you're waiting, and then your team just instantly dies before you do anything, and like you're ulting with like the rest of your front line just dead, and then you get bursted. But if you have like a normal teammates, if you have okay augment synergies, normally you're just punishing bad players. These champions are all punishing bad players. If you are better than your opponents, these champions like would probably be like higher on the tier list. But assuming all 10 players in your game are actually competent, then they're like kind of average. I guess B is like slightly below average because it's this list is a little top heavy, but they're like solid. They're not anything crazy. Like they still like are 80 carry. They scale well, uh, but they're harder to play than these without much reward. Yone, I don't know. He's like here, except he's like worse than all these. That's basically what it is. So our next thing goes into this bruiser category. Uh, yeah, Yone is literally just these champions but worse. He's also easier to punish because his ult is telegraphed. Even if he'll kill his guy, but then he'll probably die afterwards. Whereas some, for instance, Yasuo, he can control when he goes in. And that difference is that like split second difference is pretty important. It's also hard to stack up your Q on the wave. It matters less for Yasuo than it does for Yone. Gragas doesn't get tank. Like, he's as a CC champion, he's okay. But he's worse at CCing than these. And yeah, okay. Yeah, he's just worse than these. He's kind of comparable to like, I don't know. He's like, I'll put him in like around here. But okay, like these tanks, they're just like these, but worse. They either have worse CC. Yeah, pretty much. They have worse CC. They're more augment dependent. So you have these that are like pure. Actually, I'll move like. I'm just gonna put all these tanks together. Just for clarity. Well, he's not really a tank, but I mean, he like functions as a tank. But Rek'Sai next to Volibear, kind of the same thing. But yeah, so these. Singe will also move like here. Okay, so the things that I haven't talked about, like these bunch, they're just worse versions of these. That's pretty much all there is to say. They're either more augment dependent, or they have worse CC. I mean, I think in general they're probably more tanky, but that's not really as rewarded in Mayhem. So, yeah. Uh, these assassins, Kindred goes here with these 80 carries. These assassins, it's just kind of comp dependent. If you can actually, I mean, you play your assassin game, then you can do well. But a lot of the time, there's going to be something that's going to punish you. You're not going to be able to kill them, and then they just heal back up, and you can't play the game. Most of the time, if you're playing these champions, you're probably trading for one and then dying, and that's fine. But uh, it's hard to reliably carry the game like that. With good augments, or if you have a good game, if you're just good enough, you can still find success. Cannon is like the same thing as Fiddlesticks, except not dependent on bushes, but also just it's hard to get good engages. He'll do enough damage, but he's not like guaranteed to like one shot someone. A lot of the time, he gets he gets like all 5 enemies to like 30% HP, and then he just dies, and then your team does nothing with that. He also does. What augment synergies does he have? That's like. He doesn't have anything like super crazy. Yeah. Uh, Victor Vel'Koz. Okay, I'll put them all with like anything that I said for Xerath applies to like these. Uh, where it's kind of hard to reliably do damage. Uh, like to get in range to like hit your E reliably, it's pretty hard as Victor. Uh, because if you can hit your E, you're gonna get punished by something else. Zig's bombs are really nerfed and also not very easy to hit. Uh, like I don't know how to describe. They're just not the easiest to play. They don't scale as well as a lot of the other champions, like with Mayhem. Like Ziggs in particular, I think he's like over nerfed in Mayhem. Like his poke is nuts. I mean, it's probably just the Mayhem nerfs that make that the case. I think those can be pulled back a little bit. But yeah, in games with shorter range, these champions are more oppressive because even though they have long range, it's not like they're reliably hitting everything. Because if everyone's playing at max range, it's kind of hard to actually hit your Ziggs bombs, your Victor lasers. It's only when you like your team actually has frontline and like something in between where you playing at high range is actually oppressive. Because like let's say you miss and then the Vayne dashes forward, then what? I don't know. It's kind of a bad argument. And then Zillion is just team dependent. Like it's just how good your teammates are, how much they can use your speed boost or your slow. Because if you play around your bombs, it's very difficult to hard carry with Zillion as a carry. Like you have to be really good at Zillion to like solo carry a game. More often than not, you're stunning, you're getting good value there, and then you're hoping your team actually can do something with that. Like Zillion has all the tools, but he's like inherently is just a supportive champion in nature. Uh, and in this game mode, like it's hard to depend on your team. That's not a good argument at all. So here, C tier, champions that just don't benefit that much from Mayhem for the most part. I could put like a Momo here maybe. But yeah, for instance, Heimer struggles with range. Uh, if you're not playing around his turrets, you're not gonna get much value, and all the times it's hard to play around your turrets. Rumble, it's hard to like he's hard to play. Like you need to get a good ult. If you can't get a good ult, your champion like, you can't really go in very much. He doesn't scale super well in Mayhem, so a lot of the times you have to work really hard to get in range and actually hit someone. But usually it's not enough. I think in general, it's really just like these are like very augment dependent. Like all like these. Yeah. I don't have too much to say about like the C tier champions. I'll talk about enchanters, I guess, because the main problem with enchanters is that enchanter items don't scale super well in Mayhem. They scale with each other, but in Mayhem there isn't a lot to buff heal shield power. A lot of the times you'd rather build AP because the total like stats value you're gonna get is just higher. And these champions just don't scale as well with AP as like the enchanters above in other tiers. Like Nami has okay value with her E, but it's usually not enough to contribute to anything. And then if you her W healing isn't really that crazy. Her R is not like it's fine, but you're not gonna get like super high damage. And it's like a skill tool, but it doesn't scale as well as it may have. Like most of these, the only stat they actually care about is haste, and you get more haste from AP items anyway. Like these champions are as good as the amount of haste that they have. Like the more you can cast their abilities, that's where most of the value is. It's just all like in their yeah, because their scaling is like not really that relevant. Like Janna, you're mostly just trying to disrupt. Like your shield can be okay, but a lot of the time, if there's more than one champion you're peeling from your carry, it's just not enough. Like Lulu, like Milio, same thing. Like they can peel away like one enemy threat, but if there's more than one, they can't really do anything, and then that just makes their champion useless. So it's really comp dependent, and then as for what you do to play them, you would only play them with another like a hyper carry ADC, and then you'd also only build around AP haste items mostly, and you're just trying to get your cooldowns as up as possible, or like as high uptime as possible. Sag is bad because she's just the most punishable tank probably. Uh, if you have some melee carries, she would probably be higher, probably comparable to like these. But without any melee carries, which happens more often than not, uh, she's very easily punishable. The only thing she can do is press R and hit someone, and that's usually pretty okay. But she's not like super tanky. She's been nerfed multiple times over the last year or so. And yeah, the other Exodia is just playing around like OP tank augments, but that's like she's still probably a worse version than like most of these at that. Uh, you could maybe consider playing AP though. That's like not that bad. Swain, his problem is that he's very nerfed, and then he's also doesn't scale super like it's hard to commit to both being tanky or doing damage. If you're gonna do damage, you are not that tanky, and then you're usually going to get one shot. And if you're, it's never really gonna get tanky enough either because he's super nerfed. And then Blitzcrank is like, you just need to. I mean, if he hits your hook, you can snowball a bit, but on his own, if you miss your hook, you're not very useful. Nocturne, I might want to move higher because of his ult utility. I guess technically Rengar is same thing, but I mean Nocturne is better. But also, it's just comp dependent and augment dependent. Either you have enough damage to like go in and actually get the kill and then snowball, or you just don't and you. I mean, yeah, that's the problem with assassins. Uh, where you have the same risk you do as in Summoner's Rift, but the reward isn't much better, and other champions are much more rewarded in the game mode. Like some games you just cannot play on these champions. like literally all of the champions, if you're good at the champion, you'll be fine most cases. It's just like in compared to like all of these champions played by people who are all good at all of these champions, they're probably just gonna do better. One thing I would like to do is I'd like to see like ARAM, but you can draft and see how people play around that. Like actually like good players like Halo, like a lot of one tricks, playing their one trick and see how good that works. But that's really gonna happen. These champions are just hard. It's just really hard. Like LeBlanc, you have to be really good, and then also, and I think the problem is just that people are bad at LeBlanc. Like if you're good at LeBlanc, she's probably fine. But I find more often than not, like she leaves them at like 1 HP, but she can't kill them, and then yeah, I don't know, but she doesn't really get punished either. But she doesn't scale very well in Mayhem because assassin augments aren't that good. Cassandra just doesn't get tanky enough, and he doesn't really do much if he's not tanky enough. I guess main thing is to be able to wall enemy carries, but he doesn't have that much CC. So you're kind of just dependent on like the enemy or both teams having a lot of melees, and then you can get on a backline carry and start threatening. But you also don't have enough damage to threaten the backline either. Like, he's a super augment dependent. Bar just doesn't really scale with anything. His AP is like okay, but it's not really that great. He has a good utility, but he's not like he doesn't scale well in Mayhem. Skarner is just probably the least reliable engage possible. Uh, his R is okay if you can like get it, but like it's not very reliable, and he's not very tanky. Uh, and even if you start building damage on him, which honestly is a bit underrated, it's still not quite enough because he's very clunky. Camille is just too easily punishable. I think, unironically, the best strategy on Camille is just to play her tanky and you play as an ult spot. Because otherwise, you have to be a better player than all of your opponents to do well on Camille. Her hook shot's too telegraphed. If you get to the uh, which map is it? Ocean's Crossing, the pink one. Camille's a bit better on that because she has a little bit. The map plays a little bit better to hook shots off of the middle thing. But even then, you also get countered by the portal, so. But yeah, the problem is even if you go in, you're just gonna. If you're building damage, it's hard to get onto the carry that you want, and then you're also gonna get one shot and die. Ramus is probably just the worst tank. He's like even less reliable than Skarner. And even though he has his 80 gimmick against all these 80 carries, there's enough healing and stuff that like it doesn't really matter. And also, he might not even be able to catch up to them. And Yumi is just a worse version of these enchanters. She doesn't really do enough. And the absence of a body is pretty impactful. There are some augment setups that can be pretty good, like if you get Circle of Death, that's like an Exodia, but more often than not, if there is like more than one thing that is hitting your carry, Yumi isn't gonna do anything to protect them. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go anyways. I'll think about it more and I'll try to find a better explanation for a lot of this. But thanks everyone for watching.